We're going to start off this video not by looking at Cunderdin and its history, that will come a bit later, but by looking at what's arguably the biggest and best attraction in town, and that's the museum. The museum's housed in the number 3 pumping station on the water pipeline between Meckering and Kalgoorlie. There are a number of these stations along the pipeline, but only Cunderdin seems to have had the good sense and foresight to put their pumping station to good use once it was decommissioned. If this isn't the best rural museum in the state, it's certainly right up there in the top 2 or 3. And even if you aren't usually turned on by a visit to the museum, this is one we think you will really enjoy. A small building near the pumping station is an example of an old one-room school that used to be very common in small towns throughout the state. There is still one of the original water pumps located in the museum, although this one's from pumping station number 7. There were once 3 such pumps in operation, and they moved 13.6 million litres of water per day. The earthquake house in the museum simulates what it might feel like to be involved in an earthquake, such as the one that almost destroyed the little town of Meckering in 1968. There is also a lot of farm machinery, a couple of carriages from a train, old vehicles, and plenty of memorabilia in the museum, and we would recommend setting aside at least a couple of hours to have a good look around. During the Second World War, an RAAF training base was established near the town, and this airfield was destined to take over from nearby Tamin, which was then downgraded to emergency landings only. Now it's time to move on and have a little look at the history of the town. The early European history in the area started with Ensign Robert Dale, who explored the area in 1830. Later, J.S. Rowe brought an exploration party through in 1836, and they were followed in 1864 by Charles Cook Hunt. The area was first used for wintering flocks of sheep, which were moved west again during the dry months. An unlucky shepherd was E.J. Clarkson, who was killed by local Aborigines. Clarkson worked as a shepherd with young David Hackett in a remote location near present-day Doodlakine. When the attack took place, Clarkson was speared twice, and Hackett's arm was broken. Clarkson knew he had no hope of surviving and told Hackett how to navigate by the stars at night. And after a 90-mile journey, Hackett arrived in Tujay. The locals were so impressed, they raised money to help Hackett get an education, and he attended Christian Brothers College in Perth. Later he went on to become a police constable in Gingin. A police depot was established at Yondegin, 19 kilometres from Cunderdin, and Constable Abbott Eaton arrived and took up his post in 1880. As miners started to move through the area towards the goldfields, Eaton built an inn to cater for the passing trade. Later, when he resigned from the police force, he took up land and became the area's first farmer. Before a lockup was built in Cunderdin in 1911, the offenders who got rowdy at the pub were tied to a post at the hotel until they settled down. If that failed to do the trick, they were taken down to the Northern Jail. Many of the early settlers in this area came from the eastern states, especially from South Australia. Most had come west seeking riches in the goldfields, but when the gold did not materialise, they moved west and settled the land instead. In just 10 years, from 1890, the population increased by 400%. The railway came through in 1892, and this was one of the many catalysts for development. When the Goldfields water scheme was being constructed, Cunderdin was selected as a site for a receiving dam, and the first water was pumped through on April the 22nd, 1902. Until 1948, Cunderdin and Tammin were administered by Meckering. After that time, Cunderdin took over Meckering, and Tammin split off to form its own administration. Cunderdin today is mostly concerned with wheat and sheep production. The town was gazetted in 1906, and the name may come from the Aboriginal word quenda, and may mean place of the bandicoot. Another possible meaning for the name has been suggested as hill in the mist, and yet another source says it may mean big turkey, but that one's probably best ignored. 23 kilometres west of Cunderdin, Meckering was the site of a powerful 6.9 magnitude earthquake in October 1968. The fault line that developed is still visible near the town to this day. For some strange reason, the good folks at Cunderdin Shire seem to have decided to take temporary leave of their sanity and constructed the monstrosity of an Ettamogah pub, when the original pub burnt down. This hideous monstrosity may not be out of place in the cheap and nasty Gold Coast, but in a quaint historic town like Cunderdin, it stands out like the proverbial dunny in the desert. We officially hate Ettamogah pubs. They belong in the pages of a comic book, not in the heritage streets of our old towns.